Alright guys, we have a brand new meta ranking for all weapons in Monster Hunter Wilds, from worst all the way to best. And let me tell you, some things can actually change literally every day. Some of the weapons may have jumped a couple of spots in the list or maybe even dropped, and not all of this is dependent on the run quality. Some bugs in the game prevent at least a couple of the weapons to progress further where they should be right now. So without further ado, let's jump right in it. Now here's a few things that you should consider. First of all, I tried finding footage that has the fastest completion timers for every single type of weapon in the game. Some of these are a few hours old and some of the weapons already broke the below the 2-minute mark against Guardian Argveld. That's going to be our unit of measurement for all of these fights. Second of all of these start with ambush, as that is very good free damage at the start of the fight and a few extra 100 points on top. Besides that, using Corrupted Mantle for more extra damage and also flash pods to keep the enemy on the ground so that, yeah, we can squeeze more hits in. And finally, all of these fights end up in a capture and not in a carve, and that's going to speed up the completion timer significantly by up to 30%. So without that, just consider all of these timers 30% longer by default. So let's start with the last spot, which to nobody's surprise is unfortunately the Hunting Horn, though I believe that a major contributor to that is just the fact that not that many people actually play with it. It feels convoluted, maybe even boring to some. You have to use all of those melodies and sometimes it can feel clunky if you don't know what you're doing. Right now it's sitting at 4 minutes and 27, way ahead of literally every other spot on the ranking. Even the next one is much better than it by almost a whole minute. So unfortunate to see it because it's such an interesting weapon. Even some of the changes in Wilds, especially to offset attacks, doesn't seem to really change anything. So right now it's dead last at number 14. Followed by the Hammer, not that far away actually, at spot number 13 with 3 minutes and 55. I believe that this is actually a slight improvement compared to over 4 minutes that it previously had a few days ago. So it is making advances. If you like bonking the enemies in the head, you can still use it because 4 minutes, let's be honest, is respectable, but it's like, again, very far away from literally every other spot from 12 and below. Hammer unfortunately also has a big disadvantage in the fight against Argveld because the boss moves a lot, your reach is low. Even if you bonk it in the head, it just flails all over the place. I believe that may be another major contributor to this. Also, I'm not so sure about the build. It's using the Lalabarina Hammer. I'm not sure if that's the best in the game, though looking at the stats on it, it definitely seems to be the case. Includes paralysis and also has a massive amount of damage, over 1100, so that may be still the best in the game, though I haven't really used Hammer. Switch Axe comes out at number 12, and this is where we have all the below 3-minute weapons from this point on. So this came in as a bit of a surprise to me that it didn't rank higher. I thought that some of the moves in Wilds made it a little bit better, and there are some very strong moves for it, like the full release and unbridled slash, that look very promising, and some very powerful abilities that don't take too long to unleash. One of them is also the full release that has a knockback negation, so that's the reason why I thought that this could pull up ahead a little bit. It's still below 3 minutes at 253, so I guess that's the silver lining over here. You still do get the chip damage, by the way, so you do not get the knockback, but the chip damage is still going to be there. However, some of the charge up animations may be not the fastest, so that may explain the higher timer to completion, though there were like 5 seconds wasted at the end of the fight that could have been done better to set up the smoke bomb and the trap, so maybe this could reach a below 2 minutes and 40 seconds with a bit more practice. Moving on to number 11 and even 10, we actually have both the bowguns. We have light bowgun at number 11 and heavy bowgun at number 10, but only 3 seconds is between them. So number 11 at 2 minutes 47, we have the light bowgun. Now this is very interesting because I really like the play style. You can pretty much use regular fire and immediately follow up with a burst step, which is what the user over here also does. It gives this really awesome sidestep while firing at the same time, which unleashes a ton of bullets at the same time, so really awesome. Yeah, the fire burst step, from what I can see, definitely seems to help a ton over here. In between these, using piercing ammo, in fact, you're going to see for both of the bowguns, pierce ammo is going to be the meta right now. It's just the best of the best. deals a ton of damage, has excellent range, so that's exactly what you're going to use in between not being able to switch up to that rapid fire mode. Then at number 10 we have the heavy bowgun at 2 minutes and 44 seconds. The main source of damage over here seems to be the Wyvern Heart ignition, so you will want a heavy bowgun that actually features that and not the different other Wyvern Heart modes. In this case, it pretty much does this super high rapid fire of attacks, kind of like in Terminator 3 basically. Once on cooldown, it changes again to the piercing ammo, like I said, to regenerate the bar, but piercing ammo is also very strong, the best option right now, both in terms of damage and in terms of range. It's not going to like deal super high damage per hit, but since you do a lot of hits and they all connect, obviously that's going to eventually make up for that damage. The build also seems to use the Wyvern counter ignition. In this case, that's very useful as an offset attack. It's a new move in Monster Hunter Wilds, though it doesn't seem to be used in this very footage. Now, moving on to number 9, we have the bow sitting at 2 minutes and 40 seconds. This purely spams Dragon Piercer all the time, it seems, with Dosha's Grief Bringer and Power Coating, though this weapon also has a Blast Coating. In this case, using the Power Coating specifically just to use Dragon Piercer, and every now and then using normal attacks slightly charged so that it charges up the meter and then goes back to the Power Coating so that it can unleash the Dragon Piercer even more. Sometimes also going with a perfect dodge so that both stamina and the Power Coating just gets maxed out once again. So that's basically the play here, but keeping the enemy far away as possible and spamming that Dragon Piercer as much as they can. Though in this case, it doesn't seem that they always take advantage of the full critical range, but even in that case, it deals massive amounts of damage. Maybe it looks a bit boring. I really like the Tracer shot, so I'm surprised that they didn't use it, but I guess that is the meta, so it is what it is. Then at number 8, just a bit below the middle of the pack, we have the dual daggers at 2 minutes and 37, albeit the timer was improved by some of the previous rankings. Now it's sitting at 2:37, which is like 10 to 15 seconds better than it used to be. But mostly it should not be here. Dual daggers should be way higher. Right now there seem to be at least a couple of bugs affecting it. One of which is the Demon Boost mode only buffing the raw damage on the attacks and not both raw and elemental as the tooltip implies. So that's actually quite a huge chunk of damage that you're missing out on. And if it gets boosted / fixed in a future patch, I think that this is going to climb at least a couple more spots and start rivaling some of the other options later down the line. I've also heard of unconfirmed reports of Demon Dance not getting buffed by Corrupted Mantle, so that's like double gimped by not having the best possible options. So even in this state, 237 is actually not bad. But all of this brings us to number 7. We have the Great Sword sitting at 2 minutes and 33, and in this case it makes a lot of use out of the Rising / aka offset attacks. They actually work so well against Argvel that it feels like way easier compared to some of the other weapons to use this against him. In other cases, we have White Slash and Tackle when there's not enough room to go for the Charge Slash variants. Perfect Blocking also works straight up very well against the Roars over here, and Popping Wounds is also preferred since you can immediately follow up straight with a true Charged Slash right after that, plus it keeps the enemy in place. This combo also uses Sleep, by the way, a Sleep Artian weapon, which just gives you so many openers against the head, so that's where most of the damage comes in. A very respectable timer, and middle of the pack is not where I would have put Great Sword, but I think that there's still some room for improvement. Which gets a bit overshadowed by the number 6 spot, which goes to the Lance, sitting at 2 minutes and 21, actually really good. It's actually going to be neck to neck to the current best longsword run, but just like a split second before that. So Lance at number 6 right here has probably the most straightforward move. You basically just purely press triangle spam until you get triple thrust and then rinse and repeat, basically for the most part. And if an enemy is about to attack you, perfect guard, and then maybe perform a return thrust here and there, or straight up go back to the triple spam triangle, and that's basically it. Payback thrust could also work as a good option, though I believe the animation on that is a bit too long and would lose you on a bit of DPS. A gap closing is also pretty good with Lance as well. You can just do a guard dash immediately followed by a leaping thrust, which by the way also conserves a lot of your stamina, as the leaping thrust doesn't actually consume any stamina, so it's way better than the side stab that you would normally do. Then we have at spot number 5 the long sword, sitting just 20 milliseconds quicker than the previous lens, 2 minutes, 21 seconds and 67 milliseconds. But I'm glad that somebody finally put some respect on the long sword, and it's definitely climbing through the ranks. And nice to see that, yeah, the takeaway here is basically that Crimson Slash is your top DPS boost now. The new move during the Crimson Gauge, basically instead of the Helm Splitter / Helm Breaker, you're going to use this now instead up until the bar is completely depleted. It gives you a big advantage because once you're done with the Crimson Slash, which is already higher DPS boost, you go straight to the level 2, so to yellow, which means you only need to upgrade once to Crimson again and rinse and repeat. Though I would still say that maybe the Helm Breaker is nice for stylish points. You can still probably use it in regular runs. Otherwise, Fade Slash into Spirit Slash routine is the best at upgrading the Spirit Gauge, and also the Fade Slash building enough inner gauge to go straight to Spirit Slash routine helps a ton in this case. We already covered that in the Longsword video. Otherwise, I'm seeing EI Spirit Slash being used over here for the same reason, and also Fade Slash that can be followed through directly with a Round Slash. If you do it through an enemy attack, also helps to level up that gauge to Crimson much quicker. But then we move on to number 4. We have Sword and Shield sitting at 2 minutes and 12 seconds, quite a bit far ahead compared to everything else before it. So this seems to just purely spam 2 triangles followed by 2 circles and then 2 triangles again, pretty much the same combo of lateral slash, return stroke, chop and side slash, as this seems to just be quick, super high damage, at least for the SNS, and definitely really nice. It's not like huge damage per hit compared to other weapons, but because you do it so quickly, this fits the playstyle very well. Mix in your perfect guard and power clash every now and then with the playstyle, and maybe some sliding swipe to gap close or move over, and that's basically you. You don't even have to use some of your other abilities or jump into the air or whatnot. So very interesting, given the fact that SNS is a very beginner-friendly sort of formula that you can use that's quite straightforward and is a very versatile playstyle as well. But then we start moving on to the last 3 spots, and one of them was dethroned to number 3. That's going to be the Insect Glaive, which now sits at 2 minutes 07. And surprise, surprise, it continues to be the best when using the ground combo moves that provides the highest DPS. Immediately starting the combat with a max charged out Harvest Extract to get all of the 3 buffs at the same time, and then going straight to the Strong Rising Slash routine, to Reaping Slash, and eventually keeping that with the circle pressed at the same time until it reaches Strong Descending Slash. That seems to be roughly the routine, keeping that for as long as possible until either the buffs are about to expire or when the boss is on the ground, as that brings us to the true biggest burst in DPS for the Insect Glaive, which is the Rising Spiral Slash, an absolutely amazing ability that completely shreds through the targets. And I mean, look at some of these damage numbers right here. It's like completely ridiculous how much you can get through that. But this move also consumes all of your extracts. However, you're going to get them back right away by using a quick focus strike, since by this point you have generated many wounds regardless. Which brings us to the second spot. It climbed up a little bit. That's going to be the Charged Blades, sitting at 2 minutes on the clock. So one of the key takeaways here is that it's making heavy use of the Power Axe mode to hold down that swing and basically chainsaw through the monster, ripping them to shreds. Load Shell 2 seems to be the staple meta right now for Charged Blades. With this, you can pretty much charge straight from red into enhanced files, so pure quality of life. Instead of having to do it twice, you just charge it once and basically you're there at max. And enhanced files got a new mechanic in Wilds, pretty much giving you a huge boost in extra damage per file, but I believe that the duration of the elemental boost also gets extended by about 3 minutes if I'm not mistaken. Also, surprisingly, not using AAD or SAD, not losing those file charges basically, since they last for a lot longer if you just continue to use that Savage Axe. So overall, a very impressive run. And finally, to spot number 1, yet again, Gun Lance. Now it's breaking records. It's sitting with the best record at 1 minute and 55 seconds, though I believe it's going to be even better in a few more days. And it's a highly effective 4-hit combo here that you need to use. So it's just shelling followed by a moving wide sweep, Wormstake full blast with a final multi-Wormstake full blast, rinse and repeat. mostly relying on the regular and the multi full blast for the highest amount of damage, since that unloads all the damage at once. So the first full blast unleashes all the shells at once in a nice arc sweep, and then the second one lodges the wormstake shot for that absurdly busted continuous spin damage you see in the target. There's also like shelling plus moving side sweep on its own that's already really good at gap closing, so that's a nice way to get followed up with the multi-strikes. Also, the focus strikes are very useful here in this build, pretty much reloading everything at once. Not much use of the Wyvern Fire, surprisingly. I was expecting to see that a little bit more, but I believe that in this run it was only used at the end to take down the boss. Overall, a highly defensive and highly offensive weapon at the same time, with many benefits actually. There's a reason why this is the meta right now, the best of the best. So yeah, go with it. You're going to be surprised by how good the gun lens is. And yeah, this pretty much concludes today's ranking, but do let me know down below in the comments, despite this, which one of these weapons is still your favorite. Let me know down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.